get started, I just want to do a quick land acknowledgement. The Hollywood Fringe acknowledges that we are in the unceded lands of the Tongva, Quiche, Gabrielinos tribes. Our statement serves as a practice as we further commit to our indigenous community. I'm so sorry, it has been a long day. I'm going to start that again. Hi, I'm Ellen. I'm the co-executive director of Fringe. And I quickly want to do land acknowledgement. The Hollywood Fringe acknowledges that we are on the unceded lands of the Gabrielinos and Quiche nations. Our statement serves as a practice as we further our connection to indigenous communities, past, present, and emerging. Before we get started, I just really wanted to thank NewFilmmakers LA. Thank you so much for a little bit about NewFilmmakers. NewFilmmakers LA is a nonprofit 501c3 organization that champions emerging and independent filmmakers and storytellers from around the world. It provides a forum where filmmakers can be recognized for their contributions, have open audience discussions about their work, and connect with industry professionals for insight on distribution, production, and representation. In an effort to showcase, support, and educate, and build relationships for next-gen filmmakers, NewFilmmakers LA has rapidly expanded to the monthly film festival to host an array of workshops, panels, competitions, and networking programs, including the In Focus initiative, which combats the lack of representation in media by celebrating underrepresented voices. It's kind of like the Fringe of film and TV. So if you're wondering what they are a great partner of ours, and we're just so lucky to have them here in the Hollywood region. I'm going to bring up our panelists, and I'm going to actually, I'm so sorry, come up here, come hang out with me. I don't have an introduction for them, but I do have questions for them. And so what I would really love to do is just start off by asking you what your name is, your pronouns, your background and experience in theater, as well as film. And so I'm going to make you go first, Matt.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a microphone right there. All right, here we go. I know how to do this. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. I thought there would be 3 people here. There's 170. Matt Ferrucci, he, him. I am a Filipino-Italian writer-director, born and raised in San Francisco. I went to USC, graduated from USC. I was a performer for about 15 years. You know, acting in TV and film and locally in theater. I saw a few TV shows. Did a 2-year Meisner program. I was at the Atlantic Theater Company in New York City, Beverly Hills Playhouse. I'm not a Scientologist. And then after that, I started writing and directing. I wrote for a couple of seasons on a sketch show on Comedy Central. I started shooting my own shorts. I've had a lot of films on the festival circuit. I've done the Warner Brothers HBO directing program. Transitioned back in the day to the ABC Discover Showcase. I did all of those sort of fellowships. And I think what kind of qualifies me for this, 3 years ago, I adapted a 1-act play by Kate Allen into a short. It's called Anything for You. And it did NewFilmmakers LA, had a big festival run. So I can really talk about how kind of transitioning, taking a play to the festival circuit. So, thanks.
Hi everyone, my name is Melina Torres, pronouns she, her. I am Mexican-American, Chilean. I am from Imperial Valley, if you've ever heard of it. It's a very hot, dry area close to the border of Mexico and California. I sort of have had an unconventional path with theater. I was not a theater kid. I didn't pursue it or have like as much of a background as you guys, but I sort of fell into it in moving, first of all, moving to New York City, and you're just kind of, theater is around you, such a part of the DNA of the city, and working in film and television is actually like my entry point. I've been working at companies that have been scouting talent from the film and the theater spaces, and I'm currently at a company that produces not just film and television, but also theater, a company called Soda Productions. We have produced a play called All Nighter for those of you who pass through New York or in New York, and co-produced shows like Good Night and Good Luck and Romeo and Juliet and Stereophonic. Love theater, and I'm constantly yeah, looking for new voices from that space. I think there's some really exciting writers and directors and talent coming from the theater world. And I've had the privilege of working with theater artists in crossing over to film and TV and developing their voice in that space. So excited to be a part of this conversation.
That's a very Fringe problem.
Yeah, this is
That's cool. I'll just let it out.
There we go. There we go.
Hey all, I'm Scotty Felix. I am a writer and director from Colton, California, Inland Empire.
I'm from Inland Empire.
Really?
I'm from Hemet.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Yeah.
Reppin'. I went to USC into the theater program there, and shortly after I started directing at an experimental theater company called Sauce and Rec, and had a great time there and discovered that I wanted to be a director. And since then I co-founded a production company called Sunflower Pictures, and we do a lot of commercials, music videos, and also a lot of shorts, as I'm sure we all have. And we're currently in pre-production, development for our first feature film later this year. So things are going good, and I'm excited to be here.
Hi everyone, I'm Marissa Chivas. I'm a New Yorkina, Cuban American, now living in LA. Any New Yorkers in the house? Yay! There are a lot of us. We tend to like switch posts. I started off as an actor in the theater on and off Broadway, a lot of resident theater. And then I moved out here to Los Angeles 27 years ago to be part of the CalArts scene where I teach, and to start a performance, a theater called the CalArts Center for New Performance, of which I ran an initiative called Blende CalArts that focused on Latin American and both local, national, and international collaborations with Latino and Latin American artists. I had a solo show called Daughter of a Cuban Revolutionary that I toured around the US and to Europe and Mexico, and that kind of got me started into writing as well. And 3 years ago, I became a Sundance Screenwriting Fellow with what will be my feature debut, which is called 1972. Thank you. Shooting in early 2026. And I have had 3 films, 2 of which screened at NewFilmmakers LA. I love NewFilmmakers LA. I think it's an incredible organization that came from plays. So 3 different projects that came from live performance, elements of the plays turned into films. And one of them actually I had always thought of as coexisting simultaneously as a live performance and then also a version that is film. So I'm really interested in multi-platform work.
Thank you all so much for sharing. It is a heavy-hitting film. You are all so talented, and we only have about 45 minutes to kind of get into this. And so I'm going to kind of set the tone by talking a little bit about where our fringers are coming from. So many of them have put up their show this year. Some of them have put up their show previously, and they're kind of been in development and are kind of at that stage of what do I do with it next? And in that process, a lot of people kind of decide, am I going to continue to pursue touring, or am I going to adapt it into something for film and television? And so a little bit of what we're going to talk about is adapting work and what that kind of looks like to transition, especially for somebody who's not as familiar with film and TV. If they come from distinctly a theater background, what do they need to know? And for some of us who are kind of dabbling both, what are some opportunities where you can kind of, work on some new skill sets, learn some new things, and find some success. Okay, so my first question is, what creative adjustments do theater writers or directors need to make when making the transition to film and TV? Do you have any advice for Fringe or independent theater folks who want to maintain authorship or creative control when transitioning? So like so many people here have been approached or they've been talking to people and they're like, let's develop this. What does that look like when you're collaborating with someone else? And what does it look like when you do it by yourself to transitioning your work into a new media? It's a hard question, and I know, that's why I was like, let's do this first because it's kind of juicy.
It's also kind of like an obvious one, but there's that thing of thinking cinematically, right? Just what can you adjust in the core of what you have of your play, and to really focus on how an image can convey what you're conveying through the words, if it's a language-based piece. Those of you who are working with more visually based piece, you're already, ahead of the game in that way. But I know that's something that really having the right people who really know that world to get advice from is really important, and to listen to them and to listen to their guidance. I know that something that in my process with my screenplay that I'm going to be shooting, I think I've had at least 10 drafts, like full-on drafts. And the really big pivotal one happened last year that made it production ready when I cut 14 pages, but it was actually adding things. And it was because I found a way to just be really concise with the image and letting the image tell a story. So that's something that has helped me to really focus on that.
I feel like I'm on a dating show or something. Just to echo what you said, I think when you're taking something, from my experience, from stage to screen, you do definitely have to start thinking in pictures, visually. If you're doing if your play or your one act is two people sitting in a cafe having a 10-minute conversation, if you're doing it on stage, that can be electric. If the performances are grounded and the audience will lean in. If you do a 10-minute scene in something on screen, that could be death. So you really have to sort of reinterpret that. And then the short I did based off of what I play was a 15-minute conversation of two women over lunch. So my whole thing was, how do I reinvent this visually? Because theater really is. You're telling the story at the audience, whereas on the screen, you're telling the story through a frame. And so it's really this shift. It seems easy, but I just recently had a friend who is a killer in the theater space as a performer, as a writer, and he just directed something for the first time, and he was directing it like a stage play. He was he'd say action, and he was watching the performers. And I'm like, why aren't you in front of the monitor? That's where he's like, but I want to see the performance. I'm like, no one's going to watch it like you're watching it. You have to sort of rework your brain just to think visually.
No, completely, all of that, and it's just such a different medium. I would definitely recommend, which I'm sure so many of you are already doing, really study the film form. I'm always so impressed when I meet theater artists who are just like Criterion nerds and just know their references and just have such a deep well of knowledge. I think it's a different medium that you have to really study the craft and just be really hungry and open and be a student. But yeah, in terms of the actual adaptation process, I've worked with some playwrights who have had. I'm thinking of this one playwright who had a monologue that was a really awesome, beautiful monologue that when we read it at my previous company with CV Productions, we read it and immediately felt like, yes, this is not only great for stage, but also great, this is a TV series, and the monologue itself feels like a series breakdown. So this is not the TV show itself. It needs work. It needs to be evolve into the medium. But this feels like a pitch. And sure enough, we worked with this playwright, brought it to another partner who had a deal with a streamer, Amazon, and they really saw the potential there, and they had their own ideas of like a showrunner to bring onto the team and really work with this writer who had never worked for TV before. So it really depends on like where the piece is at, and if the piece even is film the best medium, is TV the best medium? Like it's not always. And if you're really like adamant about like no, this needs to be adapted, just really rethinking like what is the perspective and point of view for screen, and being really intentional about it. But yeah, it's always a really exciting process, the adaptation. Yeah.
So my question, I just want to go a little bit back, and I specifically am asking Lena too, about what happens when you're collaborating on something. Say you're just like that pure creative that is like, I'm a theater person, and somebody from film approaches you. How do you protect your work when collaborating with somebody who might have that knowledge on how to adapt it best in their industry, but also you need to have your own creative control?
Yeah, it's always such an interesting and I think layered process. I think as an artist, know your non-negotiables. Like where you like, okay, I'm on the stage. I wrote and directed this, but for film, let's say I want to be the screenwriter, but I don't necessarily need to direct it. I'm open to someone else directing, and I think kind of knowing like what your non-negotiables are, and I think to that, finding the right producer, the right executive who is going to protect you all the way through. There's actually a project right now from a theater artist who has never even written on final drafts, so that has been a real like process together. And her voice is just so undeniable and unique and raw that like no matter once we're with the network or a streamer or a TV producer, that's the part it's really inexpendable. Like she is the voice, but then it's kind of knowing like okay, what she's aware that she will want to be partnered. She's not but want to be part of the showrunner and someone who is going to help get the show made. So I think kind of being open and hearing the different avenues for getting your work made, but also just knowing where you don't want to compromise and finding the right partners who are going to protect that. That answers the question.
It totally does. Let's talk a little bit about how you get started. Like, what's the first step an artist can make to make the jump between theater and screen? Is there any specific classes, fellowships, programs that theater artists should consider if they feel like they're ready to make the jump?
I would say for somebody trying to get into, I'll also too, I'll preface this with more of a film POV than TV. If you're trying to go in from theater to film, I think the best thing that you can do, it depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to be the writer or the director, that's probably what I can best speak to. If that's the case, then I think probably being able to surround yourself with people that know more about film than you do and not having an ego about it. I started, I was directing in theater, and then I knew I wanted to get into film. And the first thing I knew of, I was like, I don't want to film any of my stuff on an iPhone. Not that that's a diss to anybody, but I knew at least I was like, I want to film it on one of those nice cinema cameras. I need to go find somebody that owns one of those things. And so I went and like found out people that have those, and I ended up meeting, and one of my first jobs of the short film that I had was a DP that I ended up falling in love with, and we still work together today. And I learned so much from him, of being able to at least learn what focal lengths were and what lenses are and what types of gear is. And that just like helped me, because then that's a trickle down effect of being able to at least be the director on set, but also know that pretty much everybody on the crew knows way more about this than I do. But the one thing that I had to be a good team player on that team was that I knew the story that I wanted to tell. And that was all I needed to have. And I was willing to be like, okay, what if we shot it this way? And the DP is like, well, that's kind of like a weird cut if you shoot that to this. And I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. and now it's like, it's a smooth thing now. But I think surrounding yourself with great people. I mean, one of the guys that I've been with, one of my business partners, Cyrus Hobby, having a good community like that around where you can trust each other to just like talk ideas and also like go into the battleground with each other and know that they have your back and you have their back, because this is a hard business. And so I would just say leaning into your community and finding that community.
Are all four of you collaborators, or any of you like, no, I do this by myself?
I haven't learned that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I came out of theater, I was a bit of a control freak. I think you learn collaboration, and I think that was the biggest jump because of the way theater and plays are structured. Everything I shot early on was like a director's cut, and because I came from the theater. So, and eventually I kind of learned how to sort of whittle things down and collaborate more. And to your other question really fast, I think as a creative, we're talking about TV and film, I think in authorship, and it's like, what do you have in your control? You know, you have your play, you've done your play, you've written your play, and I think authorship is more than just protecting your script. I think if you are really clear on your idea, if you build that deck, you write that pilot, you do everything you need to do about your project, your play, your show, then it sort of becomes undeniable. So just don't walk into it like, hey, here's my play, it's amazing. Right? Do the deck, do everything you can with that. And as far as like making that jump right now, I think just wherever Cameron shoot, I mean, find an amazing one-act play or a scene, and then shoot it, and then you're in the game. Then you have your calling card, and that's your currency. To do that, the short I did turn into, the play I turned into a short. It was 2 characters, 1 location, and 1 big twist. And I made that feel like a bigger world. And find places I program it, like NewFilmmakers, Series Fest, Slam Dance, App Fest, wherever. So.
Yeah, to build off of that, along with finding your community, you can take all the classes you want and like learn all the stuff. I think that's great. The more knowledge you have, the better, obviously. But I think that the best teacher is actually going out and doing it and falling on your face a few times. And because that's 99% more than most people are doing anyways. You know, it's like the last thing you want to do is be like writing a script for like 2 years and just leave it in your computer. You want to go out and do this stuff and fall down a few times and learn from it. And the best thing, I think the best teacher, honestly, is the internet. Like we're growing up in a generation where we have access to so much information, and you can watch hours and hours and hours of really talented YouTube people who do essays. I learned so much stuff from that, and I think that I'm like, why do you need to go to film school anymore? Not to shit on anything.
No, it's really true. One of our big things is that you don't have to go to school to be creative, and you don't have to spend money to be creative. And unless you start to do that yourself, how are you going to get anything from a class? Because you haven't even tried to do it yet. And so you're going into a class to fine-tune what you're trying, rather than going in to start the project. That was something that somebody said on a panel a couple of days, and I was like, that is it. Like, you don't go to a festival before you've tried it 5 or 6 times, because you need to get yourself in this comfortable space before you're able to get feedback that is true and you can take, and it doesn't hurt anymore. It actually makes you excited to make those notes a possibility. You have to get to that place before you're kind of ready for it, right? I have some questions. Obviously, I have some. But my question right now is like, how can somebody get noticed? Like, there's so much content, you guys. What does it take to be noticed, especially when you're coming from the theater world where we're already fighting, everybody knows, to get noticed in theater. So break into a new industry seems hard, you know?
Yeah, I mean, the attention economy. It's very crowded out there. I think, at least from a film TV producer and executive perspective, we're constantly, sharing material and sharing things with each other. And it's just such a, I think for me, the way I find stuff is, it's through the more traditional Hollywood channels of representatives and agents and managers and all of that, but it's also just through word of mouth, and especially from the theater side of things. I live in LA now, and I'm trying to integrate myself more into the theater scene here, but at least in New York, you just kind of hear of shows happening. You just go, and it doesn't matter if it's Broadway or off-Broadway is more accessible, frankly. So you're just seeing all kinds of stuff. And it really, a lot of us peers are just doing that. And so it's so exciting, like the discovery process of like stumbling upon someone who has a really exciting voice or perspective and just a way of thinking that's going to stand out. And if it's really undeniable, I think that does, rise to the top. So I think don't underestimate just like being in the mix, being out there, making stuff on the internet. I think social media is such a good tool. I don't really, there's the follower counts and all of that people obsess over, but for me, if like a video comes my way or pops up and it's a really funny voice or someone who's really witty and interesting, I want to reach out to them. So there's a lot of direct outreach, and I think that kind of, everyone's sharing, everyone's disseminating stuff. So I think be in the mix and just do, like, this is a great event, great program, just do it all and kind of be out there.
I would just add to that, and this is kind of on my mind from the LANIF festival recently and all the panels that I went to, which were amazing. And everybody speaking on the panels who were having their film screened and who were, there was one director actually, she's Colombian, and she started as a project with theater students and turned into the film, and she just won the premiere prize at a festival in Spain. But everybody was basically doing what they are passionate about. They weren't trying to fit some idea of what they think is marketable out there, because that changes every millisecond. They were really, and also with projects, I mean, my screenplay I've been with for years now, I love it, I still love it. And you have to love it because the process can be long before you actually get it realized. But I think that's really essential, is like not trying to think about, oh, what is needed out there or what does somebody want me to do, but what am I really passionate about? What's the story I really urgently need to tell? That's the one that's going to get people's attention, I think.
I think to get noticed, for me, it was the festival circuit was my calling card. I did that, and after like awards and buzz, then I got development meetings. But I also think, it's off of what Scotty said, was, when I saw this one-act play that I loved, I just reached out to, I didn't know how to get copyrights and all this stuff, and I reached out to the playwright in New York, and I said, this is my new take on how I would shoot this. And she said, I love your take, and she gave me the rights to do it. And so I think a lot of times we're searching for material. I mean, this whole festival, maybe it's not your thing, maybe it's somebody else's thing. You see a great play, you see a great show, go up to that person afterwards and maybe you want to shoot their thing, and then you're working with them on that. And even if you've never directed before, like Scotty said, find a DP who knows how to shoot it. Because I think like the fine line between being a director and being a director, it's like we all have taste. So you have taste, you've been watching movies and TV your whole life, so you kind of know what to do a little bit, but then just grab somebody. But yeah, I think, how do you get noticed? You gotta have the bullets. So either write that pilot based off of your show or go shoot your show.
We like to be full transparency here at Hollywood Fringe, so I'm going to ask a question that's not on here. But it takes like a lot of money, right, to like continue to do this stuff. Like you do have to invest your own money and time most of the time, correct? Is that what your experience has been? What does it look like for somebody who's just starting out and maybe doesn't have that money?
The first 2 short films that I did were no money.
Okay.
I wrote, I didn't have a computer at the time, I had a typewriter though, and I wrote a script for a short film on there, and I reached out to the DP that I mentioned earlier, and I said, would you be interested in doing this short film? And he was like, yeah, and he was like, that's cool, you do the typewriter, like vintage look. I was like, oh. This time broke as hell, actually. But he ended up getting an entire crew, like gaffers, key grips, first ACs, because they believed in the story. And it was, even though it's a modest little short film, these guys who were working in agencies that were shooting Gatorade ads and all the stuff we see on TV, they wanted something that like nourished their soul as like storytellers. And as playwrights and people coming from the theater, like that's the entire like essence of theater. So you guys have keys to be able to go in there and give something that's really, really priceless, and not to be, like literally it's priceless. These people are looking for that type of stuff. So when you get into the bigger projects, of course you need money, but when you're like starting out though, and it's passion projects, you probably won't be able to get people out there for free every single time, but you got a couple of cards that you can use. And if that card gets you one short film that you're really proud of that you can post online on Instagram or on Vimeo, and that gets to your point, gets somebody to look at your stuff and be like, wow, I didn't know that so-and-so was doing this type of stuff. And they DM you, is what happened to me on my first short film. An executive producer for a very big show at Warner Brothers. I was doing background at the time, and I hated it. I could not stand it, but it helped my ego a little bit long term to be able to humble myself. And I met that guy a couple years later. He saw my short on Instagram, and he DM'd me and he shared it to a bunch of people on his platform, and I work with that guy now. You know? And it's just like being able to have the gut to be able to put your stuff out there, because that's kind of the price, in my opinion. If you're gonna go out there and make stuff, like you have a certain price that you have to pay to be okay, like I gotta share this now with the world, and like what's gonna happen is gonna happen.
Money's a thing. But like, use your resources. You know, maybe you can't shoot that scene where everyone's driving all over LA, but your friend owns a bar. So then you're writing something to the resources you have, and then you can use Seed and Spark and all these other things. I saw a short recently in the festival circuit, and I cannot tell you the name of it, but it was a woman in an improv troupe, and she called out for a suggestion, and the person said rape, and she had to answer for her co-owner of her improv troupe about like the allegations, and it was so powerful, and the camera never cut, and it was 15 minutes and nobody moved. So yeah, if you're doing something big money, but also you can do something for little money too. So
When you go into the festival circuit, are you usually going with your shows to other places? Are you sending your shows places that you're not attending? Like, what does the festival circuit look like in film?
Say the question again. What does it
So
look
like, so say you're doing a film festival, you're like, I don't live there, but I'm gonna send my film to that film festival. Do you always have to go with your film?
No.
Is that the point? Or
No,
what
no,
is that? Yeah.
you don't have to go. And I mean, I've been in, I remember going to one, and it was like me and my 4 friends in the audience in Florida. I was like, oh my God. I mean, that can happen. But it can also be a really great way to meet future collaborators, future supporters, just building your community. One of the things that I just signed up to Ted Hope's Substack, and he has such great advice, and his thing right now is every filmmaker has to have a Substack. You have to build your audience now. Right, and the idea is that you find your audience, you find the people who are interested in your story by going to these festivals, by having events, by attending those panels, and somebody in the panel is like, I like what you're talking about, let's talk, and then it just builds. And I mean, I think that's one of the most important, especially right now with distribution, so up for grabs, and movie theaters, and people aren't really sure like what's happening in the future with actual movie theaters, and people are being amazingly inventive about that. I'm also reading Selena Ringle's book, Be the Train, highly recommend it. She has a film, You, Me, and Her, that she got distributed to 250 theaters around the country, feature film. She's written and acted and produced in 3 feature films, and it's all very much like starting out with, this is what I've got. And you know, artists we're very inventive, we're very creative, we're problem solvers. And we may want that budget of $1 million, but maybe we just have 100,000, we're gonna find a way to make it work.
Are there any film festivals you all recommend? Are there any that, other than NewFilmmakers LA, of course, monthly film festivals? And it's a great networking networking opportunity. The way that I actually met Larry was like, I need you to come see some stuff. And I went there and I was like, oh my God, there's Fringers here. And so you'll know people. And it was really, it's a really beautiful festival. But anything else?
I mean, there's your usual suspects like the Sundance and Cannes. I think those get the most, like South by Toronto, they get the most coverage by film and TV, execs and producers. But there's a lot of people who find their sort of like, oh, I really like to check out Fantastic Fest, or there's like something more kind of niche or like specific that people follow, or Palm Springs, or in New York, I really loved the everything I was seeing at new directors and new films. So I think there's a lot. Find your festival. There's bound to be someone who's following said festival very closely, and like go for the big ones, but also like do your research as to where your specific film might resonate in terms of a demographic or audience or genre.
I love Santa Barbara Film Festival, and one of the things that's really great about them is that you could just go on YouTube and watch these incredible interviews with some of the best directors, actors, anywhere in the world, and they have a big international focus as well. So even if you don't attend the festival itself, taking advantage of what the Santa Barbara Film Festival has to offer is great. CinemaCom in Chicago is a really great festival. They just became a 501c3, and their festival is up in July, and they have a newsletter, and they also have panels that they make open to the public. I think a lot of those festivals that make the panels open, which are most, are really great. Pasadena Film Festival is a great local festival as well.
Yeah, kudos to that. Pasadena's great, Santa Barbara's great. I also think if you shoot for all the big ones, you're gonna get super discouraged really fast, but the mid-tier ones are great. I always kind of say sometimes film festivals outside of LA are better, because in LA everyone's got something to do and they're busy. Like I've gone to festivals in Vermont where you can't leave and everybody shows up. So you're I don't want to go to the New Mexico or the Reno or the Iowa. There's some banger festivals in the weirdest places and the whole community shows up. So don't disregard that because it's not a major city. And then you can win awards in these mid-tier festivals, and then you have a brand and no one knows. No one just oh, you won an award. And just
sounds
do that.
like the Fringe circuit.
Yeah, totally. And then you're oh, you won 10 awards. They're not gonna, the social media is weird. They just know that you won something. But yeah.
Okay, so we've kind of got through the film festival stuff, we've kind of got through some of this. Some of people would love to know, how would you get into the right rooms? What advice would you give to people who want to work in front of, work with people? How do you get in front of their face outside of the film festival circuit? Is it working in film and TV in PA jobs and in these kind of odd jobs until you finally meet the right person? Is it throwing yourself into other things? What was your path, or what are paths you've seen other people take?
Yeah, I would say, outside of the festival circuit of it all, I think, PA, I think a little bit of everything. I mean, I've worked at a lot of sort of more kind of startup and unconventional type of film and TV production companies where, one of them was filmmaker led, and he would just meet, people that were working on his crew, and and they had a film and they had a script, and I think it's a great script can come from anywhere. But I think in terms of how I've come across artists and new voices lately, it's been the reps for sure, but again, social media has been a big part of it, or film festivals. I'm going to be going also to Edinburgh Fringe, so I'll just be reaching out to the people directly whose work I respond to, and sometimes it's better when they don't have a rep because there's not a gatekeeper, and I think sometimes there's certain artists that if you do have a rep, they're trying to curate your really have a very specific strategy about how they're going to introduce you to the industry, which is great, but it's also awesome when there's someone that you sort of stumbled upon that you can build a relationship with. And I think a lot of producers and executives in film and TV are eager to get working with those people and not have there be so many barriers. I would also say don't underestimate assistants in the film and TV world. Just get to know people out there. They are hungry and they want to be bringing things to their bosses and getting their promotion, getting recognition, and producing stuff on their own. So I think that, yeah, that there's a big window of opportunity there as well.
I would say that don't be thirsty. And I mean that sincerely. But I say that on the back end that all the people that I've met in my career that have actually added great value to my life and my career as an artist are things that have just happened by the way of the universe, in my opinion. I'm blessed to have great representation, but I have not really had any substantial relationships built by those suit meetings. It's like it's one after the other, and it's like maybe down the line it's awesome to be able to have that connection 5 years from now, and that's incredible, and you should represent yourself sincerely with grace and show how powerful you are as a creative. But I think that those chance encounters that you have with the universe, you can't really guess or plan those, but what you can do, and what I try to do, is to be prepared for when that moment met me and I was able to present myself as somebody who was training, so to say, with my writing, my directing. When that chance did come, like my preparation met that opportunity so that I could show up confidently and be like, yeah, actually, da-da-da-da-da. And then that leads to this. And it's like, okay, this is like what it is, because in my experience, I've been able to go to a lot of festivals, thankfully, and we should all submit to those. You should shoot for the high ones, you should shoot for the mid ones, whatever they are. But a lot of them are goofy, in my opinion, man. They're just like, everybody's trying to hustle and be like, hey, how are you? Here's my card. And it's just so overwhelming to where when it's too much sometimes. And so in my opinion, when I actually go out and run into somebody and I'm in shape creatively and I am able to talk to them and actually be a person and be sincere and authentic, that goes so much farther than being like, oh, what are you working on? I'm doing this, I did this, watch this. And it's just it's like, okay, we get it. So I would just say just be authentic and be prepared,
I love that, because people do be thirsty. And it's valid, right? Like, you need to be thirsty and hungry in order to really believe in your art. But it's about hiding it in the best way possible, because every single person in that room is as hungry and thirsty as you. Even as you're getting up in your career, has any of that kind of presented? Do you still have some of that imposter syndrome sometimes? Or that I gotta tell everybody how cool I am,
I have imposter syndrome every day.
Yeah.
But a great mentor once said, and it's always stuck with me, is that a great artist, it was in an experimental group space where you got up as an actor and you went and did something in the space. And he said, the measure of a great artist isn't how cool you are when you get up there and being able to go up there every time and deliver something every time. He's like, one of the best qualities about an artist is having restraint of knowing when not to get up. Because that adds value to your voice, in my opinion. So.
Yeah,
that's great. I was just, it made me think about how important it is to know what your well is. What's your source? Where do you need to go to get what you need to stay grounded and to stay inspired? And my film I was supposed to be shooting right now, and it got postponed, and it was huge. It was devastating, and everything happens for a reason, and the time is. It's great that I have more time now and all of that stuff. And one of the things that's happened is I've been going to American Cinematheque a lot.
Yeah.
And I got to hear Gus Van Sant talk after Last Days was screened. And I saw Tree of Life at the Egyptian. And then I got the screenplay and I'm reading the screenplay and it's blowing my mind because it breaks all the rules. And so I'm going to the well.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this is what's important, not all that stuff about see me do this, see me do that, that's not who we really are. as artists, and that's not what's calling us. What's calling us is the depth of those stories that really, really are dying to be told, and that need to be fueled by those things that are very particular for each of us, that inspire us.
I have one more question before we go to our audience, but what have you learned about producing, writing, directing in film and TV that you wish you knew during your theater days? Or that you've brought back into the room?
For-profit is different than not-for-profit.
Yeah.
Like, I just can't tell you how many times I'd be in conversations using language that I would use for a granting organization and just seeing like, no interest. And like going, oh, I gotta find a way to talk about this, because of course it does have value in the ways that for-profit would consider it valuable, but that was a big one for me. I've had to learn that. I'm still learning it.
Yeah.
What's the question?
What's one thing you wish you knew in your theater days that you've learned from your film and TV days?
Oh, that's a good question.
Or something that you've kind of adapted and brought to the theater rooms?
I think I wish back in the day I worked on my logistics a little more in transferring from stage to screen and finding the creativity in the logistics. I mean, production and shooting for screen. Not that doing a show isn't hard, but you know, TV and film, it's like half of it's creativity and half of it is like creative, like calendar math.
Spreadsheets.
Yeah. And so sort of leaning into that. I wish I took more risks too. But that's a therapy session for later.
I would say nothing. I'm glad I didn't know shit in theater about cinema. I think that we have, for people that don't go to film school and you're rooted in theater, I think that we have not to be corny, but you have a superpower of storytelling that other people don't have, because in my experience, a lot of people who they have benefits when they go to film school. They get to learn all the technical stuff, they get to learn how to make a budget and all that. And there's great benefit to that. But at the same time though, there's also great benefit to not going through that machine and being told how to do a shot list and being told how to write a scene and being told how to do this. So you get to go and like not have this boxed mindset of what it is. So like, in my opinion, I'm glad I didn't know anything about movie making when I was in theater, because I have this vast landscape of ideas that are probably not possible, but if maybe 10% of them are, it's gonna be a lot different than what all those other people are doing. And that's what makes you unique.
Yeah, I think what Scotty said, like your instinct, I feel like I lose my instinct sometimes as a director. Like the further up I get, I'm starting to do the formula, especially in television. It's just like this paint by numbers thing. But to your point too, it's like when I was at USC, I didn't go to film school. And then when I got out, after my acting career went sideways, I tell everyone I went to YouTube University. Like all the tools are out there. Like I taught myself lenses, sound design, editing, and it's all there for you to do. So,
Do we have any questions in the audience? I'm going to hand you a mic.
Hi, my name is Shannon Corbet. My show is Napoleon's Four Sister. Could you talk a little more, circling back to funding? You know, there's the self-funded, and then you start crowdfunding. The next level, starting to approach investors, starting to look at grants. Can you talk a little bit, do you have advice for language or for approach, or just for kind of confidence of approaching people, not just asking for money, but for how to offer them a collaboration that they would be interested in investing in?
That is the eternal question for at any level finding financing. I mean, so where I sit, it's a little different, but we're constantly looking for money for our films. I think it's from the artist level. I would say find the partners who are passionate about you and have resources, and I don't just mean like financial resources, I mean who've taken the time to build those relationships. I think that goes a long way too. Or if I were an indie producer, I would try to find like a production company, like who can I partner with, who has a track record of getting things made, who has those relationships with distributors. I would kind of, you don't have to take it all on your own or shoulder everything, the weight of it. I think find your collaborators and partners who can like help you get that money and help you, access that. I think all those like programs that are out there, like Sundance Labs, and obviously that's one that comes to mind right now. But there's so many others that can sort of provide that mentorship process of like putting you in front of the right people and financiers and all of that. But yeah, that is like the classic question that I think all of us are navigating. I think in terms of the opportunity you're offering, like I think that's a great way to phrase it. It's like you don't want to seem like you're just asking for money. For financiers, I think you're wanting to really invite them into the creative process, and I think there's a lot of people out there with resources and who are people who are in the restaurant business that are curious about investing in film and TV, and I think there's an appeal there and like what they can have access to if they join in on that journey with you, which is premieres and festivals and going to set. So kind of like really framing the opportunity, I think. But that's a lot to navigate, I think, from it's really like a producer's job. So try to find the people who get what you're doing, get your voice, and believe in you, and tap into what resources they have in their relationships and networks.
If you want the grant writing on a grant writing class on the theater side, but they also have a lot of people that do crossover, LA Performance Practice. Also has a really great cohort of people who write grants together.
LA Performance Practice?
Yep, LA Performance Practice.
Thank you.
I would also really quickly say, I saw your poster there, Napoleon's Whore. What's the third word?
Sister.
Sister.
Yes.
I mean, that's a great title, and you want to like read page 1 on that. But like, I think, like you said, is finding people who have done it. I have a director friend who's with a theater company, and she's taken a couple of plays to the screen. And she's, it's finding those people who have done it before, and just being super prepared. Like if you're your own CEO, CTO, whatever other C's there are in your own. But you got to think about it like your own startup. You are your own startup. So how are you going to scale up your project So if you're going to go to someone, like you got to get all the bullets ready. Like you have your lookbook, and how does this translate to the screen? Because I think that's what they're wanting to know, and to having all of those answers ready will help you get the money.
We have one here, and then we'll have one.
Hi, I'm Regina. My show's Trans Mom versus Family Court. And I wanted to ask you 2 questions about copywriting. Is it important to copyright something before you start sharing it? And then what about crowdfunding? Is it like going down the wrong alley, to do your own funding, or is it better to involve other people's money? Is that a clear question? Yeah.
I'm not sure about copyright. I think it's like copywriting your own script. Yeah, I think it's just safe to do that. You can register, I think, with the WGA for like $20, I think. Watermarking your script is important, I would say. As far as crowdfunding, kind of similar to the last question as well, something that we did was we went on Kickstarter. We built everything out as legit as we could. We looked at all the most successful Kickstarter pages that did the most trending numbers, and we're like, okay, they did this layout, this other people did this layout, and we examined what was best for our project, and like also most importantly to present it as something that is very legit and real, and people can invest money into it instead of it just being like some half-assed thing that we would put together or whatever. You want it to look as professional as possible, because that approach and attention to detail is going to invite those types of people that have those bucks to spend. And when we did our Kickstarter, we set like a modest goal that was I think like 10 grand or something like that. And simultaneously, while we were getting people to invest money into the Kickstarter, we were also doing private conversations for private investors, because Kickstarter does take a fee. And so it's like, well, I can present to you this Kickstarter that has 8 grand in it right now, but if you want to give it to this LLC and wire it here for your 3K, it's not going to get deducted. And that way you at least you're playing both cards, you know, so.
Hi everybody, my name is Jan David Sutar, my show is O Constantine, and I'm actually kind of thinking about this a little bit. I also want to say shout out to La Leaf, they're a great community. I'm a YCP mentor, so thank you guys for representing La Leaf, I love that, they're just so cool. But my question is actually about after post-production and you get into distribution, are you guys finding yourselves using Film Hub, or how are you finding the way to distribute your work post, once everything's done, it's ready to go? And actually a follow-up to that would be, when do you start thinking about marketing? Because I usually have the idea of Roger Corman, which is don't make a movie if you don't have a campaign, right? So I'm kind of trying to figure out, like, in the process of making something to leak to TV or to film, whatever it is that I do next, developing that process and thinking about how I want to distribute it as well.
I'll just respond to the marketing part, just because I recently talked to a friend who did marketing for films for Netflix, and I was 2 months before I was supposed to be shooting, and she's like, oh, you gotta start now. I was like, what? And basically, look at all the stories that you could tell within your story, right? So if there's an element, there's an actress who has to learn a Cuban dialect, right? The process of her learning the Cuban dialect. I went to New York and I interviewed a former Cuban revolutionary. My main character was a former Cuban revolutionary. Her story has never been told. She was like, I've never been interviewed. I'm like, you're kidding. And she had these incredible stories to tell. And so I'm gonna use some of that footage to be telling the story within the story, right? So that's just some advice that was given to me, and I just thought, oh, okay. And then I'm thinking about, what are the different events that I can make happen? I went to Miami and I did a brindis, which means a toast, to send off my film, and it basically invited a bunch of people who would care about this film and to begin to create that community. I plan to do that in a bunch of different cities, right? So the marketing starts now.
Yeah, and I think right now there's a lot more distribution places than ever before. Back in like 3-4 years ago, I feel like there were only a few places. Now I feel like everywhere I go, someone's got a startup streamer doing, it's called an OTT. Like everyone's learning how to build those things. So, at every festival, it seems like a lot of even mid-tier festivals have their own distribution channels, whether they're just doing that through YouTube. But like there's Davo and Aperture and Kinema, and there's all these avenues, and I feel like a lot of places now aren't doing exclusives anymore because they know there's so many places that you could put it. So it can live anywhere, whether it just lives on Vimeo or YouTube and gets a bunch of hits, or it's on an airplane on Delta, or HBO Shorts or whatever. I think marketing-wise, it's different with every project. If you have a huge hook, then you can start thinking about how am I going to do like some Instagram reels, or how am I going to do sort of that marketing push. But I think a lot of times marketing and editing will reveal itself once you get there. So.
Hi, my name is Skylar. I'm currently doing a one-woman show called Thin Blood Memorabilia. I'm a recent CalArts acting grad from last year. Hi, Marissa. My question is, as sort of like a newcomer to the film industry, obviously there are genres of theater that translate really well or really easy to film, whereas others do not. Obviously, if you work hard enough, you will be able to tweak it. But what would your advice be for a newcomer into the film industry? Like, are there any elements or genres that I need to be mindful of or to avoid completely? Basically just elements that, obviously you have to make mistakes to grow, but also, I don't want to.
You don't want to make the mistakes. Yeah. Real quick, I think that when you're trying to make what you think they want, you get in trouble. It's like even as an actor, if you go into the room and you want to do what they think they want, then you don't get it. So you got to make a choice. If it's a good story, it's a good story. the play that I adapted into a film that played the Academy Award-winning circuit. Like I said, it was two women having lunch for 15 minutes. But there were certain monologues in it where they reminisced about when they were on vacation together and this. So I'm like, we're shooting that monologue. You know, we're taking it out. We can shoot it at the other place. You know, so there's ways you can tweak your visuals. I wouldn't like hinder your whatever you've written because it's just for the stage. You just have to open up your mind up to some of those visuals and how you can expand that universe with your play. Other than that, I don't. That's...
Yeah, I mean, it kind of just goes to what we've been saying about don't. Your passion's gonna come through. I think like don't kind of mold yourself or contort yourself to what you think and the film TV industry wants. I think the right partners are gonna find you. There's certainly some companies that are like, we will not touch period stuff. We don't like horror. But you have another company that does like horror. So just the right people are gonna find you. And I think at least for me, you know, it could be like a sci-fi, it could be something super high concept and out there. Maybe it doesn't work as is for the screen, but if the voice and the perspective is really specific and singular, I'm gonna wanna work with that person. Maybe their adaptation's gonna look a little different, or maybe it's like talking about other ideas they have in the pipeline. I think it's really kind of just put yourself out there what you wanna say, and I think it'll, the rest will kind of sort itself out. And for whatever it's worth, when and I know I'm not the only one out there, when I have like a general meeting with an artist, they're sometimes pitching me, I think, what they think I want to hear, and then I'm like, what is your weirdest idea, or what's the thing that you don't really like tell people? And like that usually ends up being the thing I gravitate towards. So just don't underestimate, I think, your own sensibility and voice, because there's a lot of stuff out there, and people want to see things that are different and stand out.
Hi, my name is Azucena. I'm Mexican. I just finished my show. The name is Anytime and Place. And my question is, well, there are two questions. One is, what do you think about the show starting or letting the show grow more on the theater stage in different festivals around like the city or in other states or countries? Or actually thinking about film or short film right away? Because, I mean, this is my first show ever, it's the first time producing and everything, so I'm on that like line of thinking, what should I do next? And if you think like putting it out there in another country, should we think about adapting for that country too, or like changing the language, or if that's gonna like make a difference? That was clear.
What language is the play in now?
Oh, sorry. It's bilingual. It's English and Spanish, but like I don't know if like, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, there's so much exciting theater. Some of the best theater I've seen. I didn't even speak the language, right? I think that taking it, if you have the opportunity to continue the process with your play, and like you said, letting it grow, and then simultaneously seeing what ideas emerge for the short, if it is a short, maybe it's something else, right? Would be great. I've especially different audiences in different countries. I've been lucky enough to be able to perform in different countries, and it's so interesting to see the different kinds of responses, and you're going to learn a lot from that, and about what your particular audience or circle that's going to support the next stage of this project, where they're at. So, I mean, if you have the opportunity to take it other places, I say go.
Any questions over here? Any last questions? Yeah.
Thank you. The phenomenon of Baby Reindeer and Fleabag from a one-man, one-woman show going over to a Netflix and Amazon Prime is like remarkable and awesome. What are your thoughts on that? Any tips if that's your long-term end goal? It just sounds it's so profound to move something from 1 hour to, you know, film and streaming like a season or whatever. Thank you.
I mean, yeah, if you're doing that, that's awesome. I think that's very much what people are looking for on the streamer front, or H24, all these places. And the one show that I was referencing earlier, it was a one-person show, one-woman show that very much lent itself to, and the story itself was very like thriller-like, and I think executives really responded to that. It really organically felt like it could be a TV series, but we're constantly talking about it. I mean, when I'm coming here, going to Edinburgh, like I'm really looking for, like everyone's looking for their Fleabag, frankly. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there in those one-person shows. And at my company, for instance, we actually have a series we have been developing that's about a stand-up comedian, and we've actually talked about, hey, how can we actually develop this for the stage as a one-woman show, and kind of use that as marketing and get it, off Broadway, get people like kind of like the Jackie Novak show as a template too, and the Kate Berlant, so many. Invite all the tastemakers to that and get a lot of buzz and generate buzz from that, and then build that person. This is she's a new writer who isn't represented actually. Generate buzz, have people come to you. Yeah, don't be like thirsty. Kind of going back to that. Reps are gonna be scouting all of this, and execs and all the folks. So we're sort of kind of working backwards. We're like, let's use the stage as sort of an opportunity to be really intentional, give that show a life, but also it will help go hand in hand with the TV show that we're trying to make.
I also want to mention that was not Phoebe Waller-Bridge's first Fringe show, and it wasn't her first Edinburgh Fringe, I think that she said she did Edinburgh Fringe specifically like 4 or 5 times before finding any sort of community or success.
Same with Baby Reindeer.
Yeah, and so I think too, sometimes, Hollywood Fringe is a little different. We're 15 years old. It's like a little bit more community-based. There's 400 shows versus 4,000 shows. But even here, it's a lot of people will talk about, oh, I need to get an industry person to my show. Well, you need to know what industry person you're targeting first. It can't just be somebody off of a list at a festival. It really is going to be about you kind of finding the people that you want to meet in general. And I just want to always say that because we've been talking about that a lot this week, that it's sometimes that industry is in the same room as you. Especially at Hollywood Fringe, where a lot of our people are in film and TV. And so talk to your people here at Hollywood Fringe who do have jobs in film and TV, connect with them, ask them questions about their jobs, because a lot of them, you might be sitting here next year, 2 years, 5 years from now. It's crazy how fast things move.
I just want to add one quick thing to that is that, yeah, when you're, trying to meet people at your shows, it shouldn't just be those people in film and TV execs, producers, reps. I think there's a big value in having your community show up and having whether it's other comedians or other theater makers who are posting about your show and getting the word out there. That person might be represented, and maybe their network on social media looks at that. So I think really prioritizing, I think, the community that your show is for.
My last question for this lovely panel is there one piece of advice that you wish that you had been able to talk or say on this panel, or one thing that you want to leave everybody with? Just one little piece of advice about being in theater or transitioning into film and television.
Scotty. Zen master. Don't wait for permission. I know that's like a fortune cookie that everyone says, but don't wait for permission to do it. You're here, you're doing shows because you didn't wait for permission on stage, so don't wait for permission to do it. If you want to transition to TV and screen, fall on your face, but when you make mistakes, you learn and you get better. Everything you're looking for is on the other side of fear. So if something scares me, or I get I always try as an artist, I'm like, okay, am I resistant to this because of logistics is one thing, or that person's an asshole is one thing, but if I have fear about something because I have doubt, then I should probably do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, really, I think, okay, the one thing I'll say that I've been told before by mentors, nobody knows what they're doing, really. Everyone's figuring it out. There's not one way to do anything to get anything made. It's just, it changes every day. I think stay true to yourself, as corny as that might sound, and have a lot of moxie, and like, don't be afraid to, I think it's a constant balance of like, you don't want to, follow up a million times with the same person. They're a human, they have a lot going on as well. But you want to really just like put yourself out there and just try it. And honestly, with first time writers and directors in the film and TV space, the thing that does get it made is when they also think like a producer and they're not kind of just waiting for other people to give them permission or open the doors or get the thing made. They're really like, I'm going to do this at any cost. And one really inspiring filmmaker that I've worked with, she was developing her first feature, had a really amazing short. Her feature was tough. It was a period, like magical realist piece set in Armenia 2 years ago, so really like very hard time to do anything in Armenia. And we were trying to get this made. She was getting no's from the traditional places, but she was like, I'm gonna do this if it's the last thing I do. And yeah, I mean, it does, you need money to make things, but she really shook all the trees. Every person she knew, this is the one she went for and asked for that favor. And put it together, did a micro budget movie, shot it in Armenia, and it premiered in Berlin. And that film is called After Dreaming. So I thought that was a really inspiring trajectory for that piece.
I would probably say that everyone's timeline is different. Don't compare yourself to other people. I think that with that, when it comes to your timeline being different, I think that all you can control is how you show up as an artist every day. I think that a lot of people like to say they're an artist, and there's the actual facts of the matter is like, okay, if you say you're this, how often are you actually going into that gym and training yourself like a professional artist? And granted, we have jobs and things that we have to do. If you're working a side hustle, you have to factor that in with that schedule, obviously. But I think that showing up as a real artist every day and taking yourself seriously the way that you want others to take you seriously is going to propel you to that. And I think that simultaneously, while you're in the gym, so to say, as you're waiting for that moment to come to you, I think that when it comes to being on social media or seeing other people get their blessing before you, I would say try your best to not feel some type of way about them, because like I said, their timing is different. And so with that, I would say that as artists, I feel like personally you have to kind of have the skin of a rhinoceros and the inside is soft as jelly, or jello, I should say. And yeah, I think just trusting your process and trusting that your time will come, as long as you're putting that work in every day as you can to be prepared for when that opportunity comes to you.
It's so great. I can only add, you know more than you realize. And you know that crazy idea you've got? Like, really trust it. Trust even the craziest part of it. Just trust where your imagination, where your passion wants to take you, because that's where your gold is.
Yeah, go.
I would also say find a community, man. Find a community. Like just how you have here, find people that are like-minded like you, that you can call up on a random day and you know that they'll answer your phone call and that you'll be able to talk to them about whatever it is, and specifically creative. You know, I'm extremely blessed and would not be able to get anywhere on my journey without the people that are close to me. I have a close friend here that is also a business partner, and I bug that man on a daily basis, you know. And without people like that in my life, I would not be able to do this type of thing. So I think just finding a community that you can genuinely connect with and ride with, because it's a hard business and it's long, it's a marathon. But if you can find those people to give you that encouragement and hold you accountable on those days that you need it, and vice versa, you'll get there.
You must have read my mind, because I was going to close this out by saying we are each other's community. And Fringe doesn't end on the 29th. And especially here in Hollywood, if you are local, we have monthly networking events throughout the year. If you're not local, we're often at other festivals. We are very supportive of artists that have come through us, and even if it's just me and Lois, there's just two of us full time year round, we will try and support your show as much as possible, but also your venues will. And also your audiences will, and you've really built that up here. And so make sure that you rely on each other throughout these processes, meet your future collaborators in these rooms, and keep having fun. Congratulations, everybody in the show.